Hello YouTube, my name is Nicholas Montes and welcome back to the Movie Archivist, everyone. And in today's video, I wanted to do something a little special. Of course, we're down to the next part of my movie decade series, and today we're talking about my top 10 favorite 1970s films. This is going to be a very interesting list because one, it's kind of late, but also, I think there's actually a lot of movies that, like, honestly, compared to the other decades, I would actually probably go back to some of these movies. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started talking about my top 10 favorite films from the 1970s. Alright, so coming from number 10, I have Apocalypse Now. So this was, I don't really know if this was like my personal pick for it, but honestly, I think compared to the other movies that I gave like an A- minus to, and keep in mind, this is probably the only A- minus I ever gave to a film on this list, I truly think that this is a masterful movie, to where I'm suddenly starting to get into more of war movies and epic movies. And Francis Ford Coppola, a few years coming out of the Godfather films, he did not disappoint with this movie. And what I really enjoyed about this movie, and what I really liked, was that it was essentially this war movie that shows you the true what made the Vietnam War so invigorating, to where it's violent, and at the same time it also kind of shows you the things that happens in this kind of war, and all the actors and the color scheme and the way the music played and the sound design, everything about it was just so well done. So I think for me, this was an absolute great movie. At number 9, I have a Martin Scorsese film called Mean Streets. So this is kind of like in his early days of filmmaking before he did Goodfellas and The Departed. I actually really like this movie. Of course, it's another, Robert De Niro film, and, you can kind of tell the sparsity of everything. And I feel like this is kind of like the full foundation film, one of his foundation movies that, one of the great things about some of his movies, especially in the 90s, where he's able to, especially when it comes to these crime movies, that he's able to make them fun, but at the same time very serious. And that's kind of what happens in Mean Streets. And it all comes down to, the way he does characters, but also in the music choices he uses and everything about that. So I really liked it. Does it compare to movies like Goodfellas and other things like that? I don't really know, but I still do love Mean Streets. Now we have Taxi Driver, the full essential Martin Scorsese film of the 70s. I really like this movie. Now, I will say, there's a movie that came out in the year 2019 called Joker, which in my opinion, I feel like was a better representation of what Taxi Driver is. But at the same time, when I rewatched Taxi Driver, I was like, oh yeah, this movie's actually fantastic. Because, the character of Travis is so interesting. And when you realize that he has all these political views, he has, certain ways he does things, and he kind of always is rejected, and then he kind of tries to make up for it by saving a prostitute, which is kind of interesting. So it's a very interesting way. Even the music choice that they have, like, is kind of haunting a little bit, but it's kind of mesmerizing a little bit. Like, it's just such a unique little film. At number 7, I have The Exorcist. Now, this is a movie that I was kind of nervous going into because I was scared of it. Because I remember it would come on TV or something, and I remember there would be clips of it coming on, and whenever it would like show the kid with the demon inside her, I would just like, no, don't know if I could watch this. I don't know if I could sit through this. But honestly, it really is a really quintessential horror movie, because in many ways it kind of starts out like a normal movie, like normal drama movie. And then when the horror kicks in, and this innocent child girl is getting possessed by this demon, it easily becomes like something so masterful, to where the whole plot just becomes about trying to save this girl with the power of God and religious beliefs. And even though you don't even think about how that would connect with stopping a demon. But if you're religious enough, you probably would understand why that would make sense. And so, especially in a this decade where it was so quintessential for horror, this really was such a profound horror movie. So overall, I really loved The Exorcist. Next up, we have Rocky, and Rocky is just that good of a movie. Of course, it's different from the other Rocky films and Creed movies because it was a sports movie that wasn't about the sport. It was more about this man who kind of found humility in his life and kind of found a challenge and learned to find life and love. He found love of his life. I'm gonna be honest. I will say I think the movie's very good. It's a very good Thanksgiving watch. And it's a very good movie. Um, but honestly, I feel like the way they kind of take certain things in other Rocky movies, I feel like they kind of continue that story a little bit better than those movies, where it kind of feels like this one's good, but it's like the other movies kind of handled that story, continued the story better. So I still love this movie, but I don't know. I think there's something very powerful about the Rocky franchise. Next up, we have Jaws. This was the quintessential first-time film from Steven Spielberg. Well, one of his first films that essentially made him, put him on the map of being this top-tier director. And for the most part, I thought Jaws was an excellent movie. I think, of course, the score from this movie is fantastic. But what makes it so interesting that made this movie so compelling was that it's not a shark movie about the shark. It's a shark movie, but the main story and plotline and characters are all focused on the main characters, on the human characters. And the fact that they were able to do something like this to where you care, but you are scared of going into the water now, but what makes you care about this movie are the human characters and the story that surrounds them and the grief they have to deal with when the shark attacks happen. And it's so moving, even from the scene where the guy slaps our main character in the face and he just takes it. He doesn't yell at her like, "Hey, don't hit me." He takes it because he understands. And even then, even the other characters on the boat, they're kind of like telling old war stories. It's so mesmerizing. So I think Steven Spielberg really nailed the coffin in this one. Really, honestly, he nailed it. We have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now, this was a film that, honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, this is kind of weird. But at the same time, I think that's what makes it such a unique film. Because you have all these different people that are trying to get this ticket to go to this chocolate factory. And they all get it. They finally find it. And then when you finally get there, it becomes just this mesmerizing film. It kind of resembles of what most children movies kind of do in the workplace, to where it's such a magical place where you can eat the chocolate, everything smells like chocolate. There's all these creative interviewers. I remember last month I went to the ice cream museum, and there was different things and certain smells, and it kind of reminded me I was going into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, except it was for ice cream. And the movie is really magical. It does take a little bit of dark turn sometimes, which I found kind of unique in a film like this. But I think overall the movie just handles it really well, and overall it's just a great movie. At number 3, I have The Godfather. Now, if I were to talk about this movie or even mention this movie, I don't think the movie would have been as high if I wouldn't have rewatched it a few more times. And I gotta say, I think The Godfather is truly one of the best movies out there. I remember when I first rewatched it, because I saw it back in 2023, and that was over 3 years ago. I then rewatched it back in April for my Ultimate Cinema List. And when I rewatched it, I was just somehow fully sucked in. I wasn't really bored. I wasn't really wanting to turn it off. I was kind of fully sucked in. I mean, obviously, yeah, there were a few boring parts because it's a very long movie. But at the same time, it's I understood more of what was going on, but also the specific premise that this movie did, to where the entire time everybody's praising Marlon Brando for his performance in the movie. And, of course, his performance is great. But what makes the movie so compelling is that it's actually about Al Pacino's character, to where... And it kind of really... And I think that's one of the other brilliant things about this movie that it does, is it shows you how the mafia operates, how the Italian mafia, works. And basically, the main boss guy, he ain't doing stuff. He sends people to do the bad work for him, to protect his family, to protect the people. And I kind of like in this movie that of our mafia movies, the Corleone family are never perceived as the bad guys. They're always the ones that are being hunted down, trying to get killed, and they always end up paying the price for it. And it's an interesting little story. And the journey that Al Pacino's character takes is very interesting, to where at the beginning he wants nothing to do with the family business, but in the end, he kind of has no choice. So I think overall, from the way it's shot to the score to just how great investing it is, it's a great film. So I love The Godfather. At number 2 is going to be one of my favorite horror movies of the 1970s, and that is Carrie. Personally, when I first saw this, I immediately knew I loved this movie. I think what personally this movie does really well is that it is a horror movie that basically shows like how bad periods are for girls, and shows you just like taking the innocent little fear of getting a period and how bad that can be. But what's even worse is when your own peers in your own high school are bullying you because of it. And what's even worse is that your mom is so religious that she can't teach you about what to do when you get a period, because she's so religious. Or she's probably too religious, for that matter. And it's like, it has all this crazy stuff, but at the same time, it's not crazy all the time. There's actually a little bit of peace in the like latter half of the film, where we're at this beautiful prom, and this guy takes Carrie out to the prom, and they get a little dance, they get a little kiss in, and for a little bit, you actually get to see a little bit of a good side of Carrie, where first half, she was kind of weirded out, and then the second, you get a little bit of time to spend with her, to get to know her as a person, to give her at least a few good stuff in life. And then the pig blood spills on her and everything goes awry. The iconic music plays and everything goes bloodshed red. And it's absolutely redonkulous. It's so great. I love this movie. And coming in first place, I don't think there was any competition. It's Superman. I think Superman is truly one of the best 70s movies. I think for me, I don't even know why I waited so long to see this movie, because truly, this is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. And I know that's kind of an exaggeration, because we're such in a different era of superhero movies where, either, we have big gigantic battles, or we're just talking down to people to make them feel better. But this is a movie that just, was the first big superhero movie, and it told it in such great style. The origin story of Superman is so great. I love his story, but also I love the score from John Williams. I love the way they crafted this world and these characters. And yeah, Lex Luthor's little evil plot isn't all that interesting, but at the same time, you don't really care about that. You care about Christopher Reeve's performance. You care about the little adventures he does. And even then, it kind of perfectly shapes how Superman as a character is, to where he has all these great powers, and yet he can't even save one. And so he decides to turn back time to save the one he loves. And it's such an interesting story. And I kind of wish they did better with the sequels, because I honestly, besides Superman 2, I wasn't really invested in the other movies. So other than that, that's kind of what I feel. But that is my ranking of all my top 10 favorite 1970s films. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.